I'm going to talk to you this afternoon about incremental coaching and how that can give consistency and culture in a primary school setting. And I'm really passionate about that because actually there will be quite a few primary schools where you'll speak to them and you'll say to them, okay, talk to me about the quality of teaching in your school. And they will say to you, well, we use coaching, we use incremental coaching, we do instructional coaching. And then when you actually unpick, you think, oh, you don't, do you? That isn't what coaching is. Because actually coaching, when you do it and you get it done really, really well, that's when you will ensure consistency and culture. So, I am Siobhan Meredith. I'm the very proud head teacher of Marine Academy Primary, which is in Plymouth, and I am also the Director of Education for the Ted Ragg Trust. So within the Ted Ragg Trust, we are an ambitious and inclusive trust of schools, strengthening our communities through excellent education. Our schools span across Plymouth and Exeter and into Greater Exeter, so you can see all of the schools that we have there that are part of us. We're cross-phase, primary, secondary, sixth form and nursery. And we have got 3 values, and we demonstrate our love through these 3 values, and it sounds a little bit twee, but in the best schools, you'll feel the love that's going on in them. And our values are selflessness, ambition, and collaboration. And incremental coaching really helps us to, the values fit within incremental coaching, these 3. And we'll know that we've been successful if we do these 3 things. So if we grow great people, if we have the highest of standards, and if we have relentlessly positive collaboration. And again, there are 3 strategic anchors that really lend themselves to incremental coaching. When we think about our children in our schools, each one of these dots represents a pupil from the Ted Ragg Trust. There's over 10,000 children that we've got within the trust, and we have got 27.3% of them are disadvantaged. Within Marine Academy Primary, we're around 35% disadvantaged. So this is what we live by. Disadvantage first and even over. So ensuring that everyone has a fair chance to make the most of their capacities and their lives. And incremental coaching helps us do exactly that, because we all know that the biggest influence you can have on a disadvantaged child is for them to have high quality teaching. And that's what incremental coaching ensures. So Marine Academy Primary is specifically what I'll talk about today. The coaching model that I'll describe to you is the one that we use within our school. Within our trust, each school does have a coaching model, but they're not all identical. We do all use Steplab, but actually what we expect from our teachers in terms of the consistencies and the habits will be different from school to school. So we were graded as outstanding in March 2022. In the same month, so March was a good month for us, we were also designated as a lead school within the Behaviour Hub programme. And coaching does transform teaching, but it also can transform the behaviour in your school, because it will enable that real consistency in approach to behaviour, and also that real reliability for children, that they know whatever they do, it will be dealt with in a really consistent way. If you studied in Exeter, you might well have come across Ted Ragg. And so our trust is named after him, and he passionately believed that education plays a key role in social mobility and in the power of local schools working together to be the very best they can be. And we really believe on that. That's the beliefs in which our trust is founded. But it's more than that. It isn't just the schools within our trust working together, it's schools working with each other. And there's lots of things that I'll talk about today that I've learned from working with other trusts all across the country. So there'll be things that I'll say that you might think, oh, I heard somebody talk about that earlier. Probably did. Nothing I'm going to share with you today is exactly new. It's just that we do it and we do it really well. So our mission then is to provide an outstanding education that ensures all pupils reach their greatest potential and live by life's highest values. And this is what sits underneath that. The social justice requires that we provide an education which gives the less privileged access to the knowledge they need to succeed. And if we're going to do that, the way we're going to do it is by having really, really high quality teachers in front of our children all of the time, no matter what year group they're in, no matter what class they're in, no matter what lesson they're in. And this comes down to this: the bigger the dream, the more important the team. I'm not going to go on about Ofsted because it isn't about that, but actually one of the things that I was most proud of within our Ofsted report was this, where it says that that staff are highly successful in raising pupils' aspirations and reducing social disadvantage. And we ensure that by this quote: the leaders show a strong commitment to all staff, their efforts to develop the most effective teaching methods in school are paying off, staff are highly trained and knowledgeable. And that for us is incremental coaching and is the teacher's CPD and the deliberate practice that we do all of the time. And this was our staff survey results for this year. So there'll be things that I'll say today and you'll think, oh, I would not want to work for her, I would not want to work there. But there'll be other things where you're like, oh, that makes total sense. And actually our staff, this is the percentage that have strongly agreed with the statements and the questions that were asked within the Inaugural survey. And as a trust, all of our schools do this, and you'll probably find that your schools will take part in it. Many do across the country. But we're exceptionally proud to have results as high as this. In terms of national comparisons, these are a whole lot higher. And it just shows that staff really value the professional support, the relationships and the support that they're given. And again, it does come back to you, because incremental coaching, that is our CPD model. Within this book, Wholesome Leadership, Sir David Carter writes this, that outstanding schools, in my experience, rarely stop thinking about what needs to be done next. Building a narrative around sustaining high performance within a culture of continuous improvement is important. And we were first graded outstanding in June 2015. We were a free school that opened in September 2013. So under our first inspection, we only had around 107 children enroll from reception to year 3. Currently, we've got over 500 children that we educate across the week, and that is from children aged 2 up to age 11. So we've grown quite considerably. And we needed to make sure that we sustained high performance. And the way that we've been able to do that as we've grown and to enable that consistency in the same diet does constantly come back to incremental coaching. That's what it has given us. Everything we do is based on some of the work of Patrick Lencioni. And when you're thinking about coaching, coaches need to be ideal team players, and they need to be this in the middle. They've got the right balance of being humble, hungry and smart. And when we talk smart, that's being people smart. Because actually you don't want a coach who is not smart. They haven't got that empathy to deal with the person they're coaching or to provide that right level of support. Within the 5 dysfunctions of a team, there's a really good diagram that talks about the key dysfunctions, and one of them is the absence of trust. And that's where coaching can really fall down, is if the partnership isn't a trusting partnership. So when we decide on who is coaching who, it's not me making that decision, it's not me saying, oh, this teacher needs this coach. What we do is say, here are our highly experienced coaches, who would you like to coach you? And that was a real change for us. We never used to do it that way, but we do now, because actually what we want is for them to form that really good relationship. Coaching isn't about appraisal, it's not about performance management, and it should be a really safe and secure environment for a teacher. So if they get to choose the person they're experiencing that with, then you're really enabling those trusting relationships. And actually, coaching is brilliant, because we all know that every teacher needs to improve, not because they're not good enough, but because they can be even better. And you'll find that when you do coaching and you use it really well, and it is working well in your school, the difference between your strongest teacher and your weakest teacher will not only close, but you'll find your weakest teacher will be a whole lot better than what your weakest teacher used to be like. And that's there, because actually the gap can be found in the difference between the strongest teacher and the weakest one. It's all about closing that gap, but continuing to raise the bar as well. And that's because, like I said earlier, when we think about disadvantaged children, if you take a group of 50 teachers, the children taught by the most effective teacher from that group of 50 will learn in 6 months what those taught by the average teacher would learn in a year. And then you see the next fact, that children taught by the least effective teacher in that group will take 2 years to achieve the same learning. And then finally, in the classrooms, the most effective teachers, children from disadvantaged backgrounds will learn at the same rate as those from advantaged backgrounds. So ensuring high quality teaching for all is the most important thing that we can do as leaders and coaches. So, I won't ask you to share, but you can think about this, that every school has the weakest teacher. Who's yours? How weak are they? What are you doing about it? And does it make a difference? Because prior to incremental coaching, I could have really accurately told you who the weakest teacher in my school is. If you'd asked me what I was doing about it, I probably would have told you that I've spent some time in their lessons, I've given them a bit of advice, I have said to them how I would do things, I don't know how much of a difference it would have made. I'm not sure that I would have gone back and really checked if it was making a difference, or beyond kind of a follow-up lesson observation. So then if we're really thinking about providing professional development for our teachers, we need to ensure that it's underpinned by robust evidence and expertise. And the EEF in this research from Sims and Fletcher-Wood et al. Have found that actually the best evidence form of professional development that we've got currently is incremental coaching. And you can see when this is broken down, if you saw Tom Sherrington speak earlier, he talked through these 4 factors. And if you look at the bottom, actually that's where incremental coaching sits, because it enables teachers to build knowledge, it motivates them, develops techniques, embeds practice. And incremental coaching then, that's where professional development features a mechanism from each of these groups. It's likely to be most effective. And that's why we have included it in our pupil premium strategy this year. So I've spoken a lot about disadvantaged children, and that is what is really, really crucially important to us. So what we do when we set our strategy for the year is we really think about how it's going to triangulate with our school improvement plan and our self-evaluation form. So on our pupil premium strategy this year, under the activity for teaching, we've got this. They will do walk through CPD and really embed incremental coaching. Now, we've been using incremental coaching since 2019, but this was the first year where I actually thought we need to do it better. And we needed to do it better because what we needed to do was provide a real model for teachers. Because we were coaching, and each coach was potentially coaching to something slightly different that would have been based upon what they felt needed to happen in that lesson. And that could have been around something like, for example, the use of talk partners. So we in school, and we have done pre-pandemic, our children sit in rows. And when we would ask children to talk to each other, so to talk to their partner, we found that they were getting into the habit of actually not turning to talk to each other. So they were developing really, really bad social skills because they just had their partner next to them and they would sort of have a conversation with their talk partner without looking at them. So we found that across the school, a lot of us were coaching to that. We were using powerful action steps, we would go on and we would set that as a step. Then we realised that one of our coaches had taken that one step further, and he'd coached his teacher and he'd said to them that when the children are talking to their talk partners, that actually what we say is, rather than turn and talk, you go knee to knee. And he develops that language, and when you went into that classroom, because the teacher had followed their action step and had worked really hard with their coach, when they asked their children to talk to their talk partner, they didn't say that anymore. They said, turn knee to knee, and then they would ask the question with the talk partner. And the children then immediately would reverse their chairs, they would turn knee to knee, and would talk, and would look at each other, and would shape the way they talk, so they show really, really good eye contact, articulate their voices clearly. So that then made us think, okay, we need a common language, because if one teacher is to their class saying, turn knee to knee, but in another teacher is saying, turn and talk, another teacher is saying, with your talk partner, there's that level of inconsistency. Because where it's being done the best was where we were asking them to go knee to knee. So we found that we needed to develop what we call our teaching charter, which I'll share with you later. But for us to really explore the whole range of techniques and the range of habits that we wanted our teachers to use, we went with the core 10 from Walkthrough CPD. And it's a really minor change, but what we did was stop calling our staff meetings, and we called them Teacher CPD. So every week, for an hour after school, we have Teacher CPD. And the point in that is that there will always be an element of deliberate practice. Teachers will always learn something new, and they will always be able to walk away from that session with something tangible that they can begin to implement within their classrooms. Now, what we don't do is go, okay, I've got 10 weeks of Teacher CPD, I'm going to introduce one a week, and then it's done. It doesn't happen. We aimed to have introduced all 10 in this academic year. We've actually only got to 8 of them, but that's fine because I know that the 8 we've introduced well, it's embedded across the school, it's coached upon if somebody isn't doing it as well or needs to develop it better, and we also revisit. So cold calling, for example, we first introduced in September, we revisited it again in November because when I was analysing Steplab data, I was finding there was quite a few action steps being set around cold calling. So it was like, right, let's come back together, let's share, really good practice, let's have some more deliberate practice together, and then they'll go back out. And we also then revisited it last month too. So it's not something that once it's introduced, it's done. So for us, this has been really key in our development and really key in developing that narrative. And what it has also enabled us to do is to really think about how we frame what we say. So we would have used to have had all these different techniques. Each teacher would have done something different to ask their children, basically for silence, to be backtracking them. So we would have had a range of teachers saying, I don't know, like, so primary schools, they'd be going LISTEN, we've got to listen, or you would have somebody would clap, or you would have people counting down from 3, 2, 1. Now we do that consistently. So whether you're in my 2-year-old classroom or my year 6 classroom, the way we ask children to stop what they're doing is exactly the same. And that is really great because it means then when we're thinking about behaviour control and behaviour consistencies and the culture for behaviour, that no matter what adult is in front of our children, the children can expect them to manage their behaviour in exactly the same way. So the teacher CPD sessions that run on a Tuesday are replicated on a Friday morning for teaching assistants. And it's brilliant because it means that what we've done is really upskilled our TAs and they actually understand why we're doing what we're doing. And you'll get to the point where in some sessions on a Friday, they will say, oh, that's why my teacher's been doing that this week. And that's really helpful because it also means that TAs feel really in control of what they're doing and they feel valued too. And when we introduced this, we did a nice launch, kind of a launch session. Everybody got a copy of walkthroughs. There's some highlighters. We created the professional development booklet. And so they went away with something they continue to look at outside of the meetings when they wanted to. And this links really well then into our school improvement priority, which was professional development, motivates and supports all staff to deliver high quality subject content. So that was our leadership and management school improvement priority for this year. So you can see why I was thrilled then when it was written in the Ofsted report that we'd done that, because that's what we were really working hard on this year. And that came from our self-evaluation form, where when we were thinking about staff development, we're saying, oh, we do all of this well, here's the hyperlinked evidence for it, but actually what we're not doing is ensuring that we've got coherence and consistency across the academy. And the reason we wanted to do that was so that every single pupil benefited from effective teaching and consistent expectations wherever they were in the school. So even in the classroom with the weakest teacher, we know there will be the consistent expectations now. So how does it work? I've told you every teacher has a coach, they get to choose that coach. Coaches need to be experienced and highly competent practitioners. Now that doesn't mean because you've taught for 7 years you get to be a coach. Actually, one of our best coaches is somebody that's only in her 3rd year of her career, but she's actually a really, really incredible coach. She's certainly very people smart and is humble and hungry, and so she's really, really competent. The coaches then will be in classrooms for approximately 10 minutes. We're generally done in 8, and they never stay longer than 15. That was the agreement that we made. And we always, always video. That was never a discussion. When we introduced coaching, we said we will video, and the expectation is that you watch that video prior to going to your coaching conversation, and that coaching conversation must happen within 24 hours. And what we need to do, and we need to get better at, is making sure those coaching conversations happen in the classroom of the teacher, so that when we're doing the deliberate practice and we're working through the action step, they can do that within their own room. And we will always agree one action point, and it will be the focus for a fortnight. One of the changes we made post-implementation was that we used to do it weekly, and we just found that it was a little bit demoralising if teachers, through no fault of their own, had not managed to achieve that action step, and we were having to roll it over. It became a little bit counterproductive. So by going fortnightly, it gave us more time for them to be able to go back, try it in their classes and hone it in and make sure that actually what they were doing worked for their children and they'd personalise that habit. Before we start coaching, so at the start of any kind of change in a coaching relationship, we'd always have a coaching contracting conversation. And it's informal, so the notes of this aren't emailed to me or anything like that. It is literally that the coach would catch up with their teacher and they would ask them these questions. And these questions there are purely to help build that relationship. So things like, what's been going well in your classroom lately? What do you need to work on? How do you feel as a teacher? Is there anything your children are struggling with at the moment? Can open up that really trusting relationship. And also then the coach can be saying, do you know what, I find that difficult in my room too. Or, oh, I think there'll be a really good habit that we can start practicing together to make this work. But we're really clear with the teachers that they're in charge. Coaching, like I said, isn't about appraisal. Like, it's all about everyone just getting better. So the teacher's in charge, the coach is there to help them. And if you turn up for a coaching session and it's just not a good time for that teacher can send you away. It isn't about, well, no, I had it scheduled for 10 a.m. on Wednesday. If you turn up at 10 a.m. on Wednesday and it's not right, they are quite within their right to say to you, oh, can you come back? And you'll do that. We also have given teachers it's totally up to them. They've got the choice of if the session is booked in or not. So we always used to book it in. Then we had some teachers saying, do you know what, I'd rather you just came, that you came whenever. So now we've got a real mix. Some will diarise it, some coaches will just turn up in classrooms, but it's all based on what the teacher wants. So like I said, maximum 10-minute observation, maximum or approximately 15 minutes for the conversation. So when I speak to people in primaries and they say, but we just aren't going to be able to fit it in, it really isn't that time consuming, and the benefits you get from it and how much teachers will grow to love it will totally outweigh any of the logistical issues that you might well end up facing. So the coach will clearly identify an area for improvement, referred to as the action step. Now that's always done through a really probing conversation. It isn't a coach just telling you what you need to do or you need to get better at. And there's always then the modelled example. So there's always that level of deliberate practice. They practice together, and the teacher will continue to practice with their coach until they've done a really good example of what the action step would look like. And that's where Steplab's good, because you click through to say, yeah, we've practiced it again, we've practiced it again, and that's really cool. And then the coach will return a fortnight later to see it in action. And it's all about finding that highest leverage step. Now, when we first started using powerful action steps, we would just go on, we would set one of those action steps, and then we would have this whole range of different steps being set. And we just found that we weren't being consistent, and that's why we went with walkthroughs, and that's why we also have formalised our teaching charter to have this real consistent language. So now, when we set a step on Steplab, we might just edit it to use our language and out of the charter that we've got, just to avoid any confusion. But that's where it's so important for us that charter was written down and we've got that consistent language that everybody understands.
Is that how you marry walkthroughs to Steplab?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And you'll see when I share our charter that actually some of our habits or techniques that we use are ones from Teach Like a Champion as well. So we're not like a total walkthrough school, but when we use the walkthrough PowerPoints, we very much go through and edit, and we've got our own slide deck. So any teacher, leader, coach that introduces a new habit would always use our slide deck, which is really consistent. So everyone knows as a staff member, you go and this is what we're going to work through that day. So it's the same cycle, which works really well. And it's all about the consistency. So I will go on and on and on about consistency, because that's where, when you go to really, really great schools, they will just have such high levels of consistency. And people will come to Marine Academy Primary and they'll say to me, but we already do this. And I'm like, you probably do. You absolutely probably do. I do not doubt it. Do you do it to the level of consistency that we do it? And that's what we do. And that is I have this kind of restless energy around things being inconsistent. So if something is inconsistent, that's when we reset and we'll start again and we'll go through, just like the cold call example that I gave you. And it all then links to school culture, okay? Because actually your three main stages of that is you design the culture you want to see, you build the culture in practice, and you maintain that culture constantly. And incremental coaching, that's why the title of my presentation today is Incremental Coaching, equals consistency and culture, because it becomes your culture, it's all consuming. In the most successful schools, you'll see that the key task for a school leader is to create the culture, and that's usually defined as the way we do things around here. And it's very much, this is what we do here, if you're going to work here, this is what we do, this is how we do it. And it is hard to know what exactly will work, but it is about that actually, in all successful schools, there are many features, values and leadership that will link together, and they'll be expressed through a variety of strategies. And if you can get those strategies written down so you're all clear and you're all buying into it, that's when the consistency increases. If you read these bullet points, and they are the features of a successful school, you'll realise that actually each and every one of them can be developed or can be achieved through the use of incremental coaching. So, high levels of support between leadership and staff, incremental coaching. Attention to detail and thoroughness execution. High expectations, a clear understanding, highly consistent working processes, effective communication. All of it you can achieve through incremental coaching. So, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. And that's what it's all about. It's about habit forming. And through the deliberate practice and through enabling teachers the opportunity to practice as a group and go back and work in their classes, that's when you're forming those habits. And it's not perfection, it's simply refusing to give up. So like I said, you would need to reset, and that's fine. But you've just got to keep going to get those levels of consistency. So the book Atomic Habits makes it really clear that the process of behaviour change starts with awareness. You need to be aware of your habits before you can change them. Now, I will be videoed sometimes when I lead assemblies, so just in the same way as you would in a classroom when you're teaching. And I didn't know I did this until I watched my video back, and I have this really bad habit of, before doing the 3, 2, 1 countdown to get children's attention, which is what we would expect from across the school, I will say something first. So I'll say, okay, 3, finish conversations, 2, and so on. And I don't know why I say okay. I need to just go in with 3, 2, 1. And that's the difference, okay? But it's because if I was going to change that habit, I needed to be aware of it first. And that's where videoing and having those conversations makes people aware of their habits so they are able to change them. And you can see the research that actually habit formation limits the growth of teachers. Teachers develop rapidly in the first few years. If you're in Josh's talk today, he showed the graph of that. And you could just see that actually once a teacher gets their 6th year, you're kind of done for. There's not much progress made between the 3rd and the 6th year. And what we end up doing is just doing things subconsciously. So we need to break habits to form new ones. Because else we just end up being the definition of insanity from Albert Einstein. And as William says, memory is the residue of thought. So you in your schools will need to think about actually what habits do you want your teachers to have. The more consistent they can be, the better. And it is this. So what are the ambitious expectations you want from your staff? What systems do you have to support them? What does success look like in these systems? How are you going to know if staff have mastered them? And do staff buy into them? Are they done with or done to? And somebody in the group earlier asked me, well, how did you decide on your habits? Because some teachers will do things and do it really well. And they might then not want to change that habit. So when we develop the consistency, some might have loved clapping to get their children's attention. Whereas now I say, no, we all need to do 3, 2, 1 as a countdown. And it's just that conversation. It's the conversation that comes out of teacher's CPD. But it's also a little bit of a reality check, because as teachers, we do all have quite large egos, because we all want to have the best classroom, we want to be the best teacher, and we want the children to like us the most. But actually, when we're thinking about the systems that we need in school, the systems are there for the children, not the adults. So that's the rhetoric that we can begin to sell to our teams if they're a little bit reluctant. And that really does link to the book Legacy by James Kerr, and I use this quite a lot in decision making within school. I'm so not a rugby fan, but I like the research that came from this. And so I'm going to pick up on just 2 of the key takeaways from that. And the first is sweat the small stuff. When people say to me, I don't sweat the small stuff, I'm like, why? Why wouldn't you sweat the small stuff? Because actually, if you're going to have high expectations that again are consistent, you absolutely must sweat the small stuff. The second one then is about there being no egos, because we're a team. So the minute you put on the Marine Academy Primary lanyard, you're there. It's like the All Blacks, they put on their jersey and they're there, they're a part of the team, they're respecting the journey, they're respecting the jersey. For us, it's looking like we're ready to learn in school, it's children and it's adults. And there aren't the egos. So actually, things like I would put the dishwasher on every day in school because it needs doing. I don't say, I'm the head teacher, of course I'm not going to load the dishwasher, because we wouldn't want those egos. And a lot of this, okay, like I've said earlier, where people might come to my school and say we do that already, it's the Bananarama principle. It ain't what you do, it's the way you do it. So if you're going to do it, you're going to do it well. So our key texts that have informed all of what we do are these. And you'll find some schools will say, oh, we do Rose and Shine. And I'm like, what does that even mean? What does it mean that you do Rose and Shine? Because I'd love to know. But what we've done is we've very much worked through these. And lots of us have read the different texts. We haven't all read all, but we've used it to really inform what we do and how we do it. So this is our teaching charter. So it is printed onto an A3 sheet, but broken down, it looks like this. And we've got our charter because actually every child deserves an outstanding education. And it's broken into sections. So the first one is classroom culture and routines. And our routines include things like threshold, map manners, STAR, which is very similar to slants, which is a technique from Teach Like a Champion. So we would say to children, 3, 2, 1, show me STAR. If they're showing me STAR, it means they're sitting up, they're tracking the speaker, they're asking and answering questions in full sentences, and they're respecting the person that's speaking. That for us is a habit. That's what we've introduced in Teacher CPD, and we would do deliberate practice to really ensure the teachers understand what STAR looks like and understand how they're going to get it in their lessons. Now, I would never set STAR as an action step because that's massive. But if I went to a classroom and I'm not seeing STAR, I would have a conversation with the teacher about what part of STAR isn't happening. And then I might, for example, set an action step that is to do with tracking the speaker. So they're working on the T of STAR. That's where we're making it that highest leverage, that bite-sized action step. Then we've got things like high behavioural expectations. So we would expect 100% observable behaviours at all times. So we're not fiddling with the pen that's on the table. If we're tracking the speaker, that means hands clear. Things like that. We would also use positive framing and recognition. Then when you go into the other sections, so we've got portraying curriculum content. So of course, we'd always make sure there's modelling. That's been really great from walkthroughs to develop that guided practice and the modelling. And in terms of enlisting student participation, we expect children to shape the way they talk. And that is how we form habits of our children. So shape means that children speak in full sentences. They keep their hands away from their mouths. They articulate. They project their voice and they maintain eye contact. So we would develop shape with our children. So again, it's a habit we've had to work through and we would coach to it. We've always got no opt-out. That's one of them. I told you about knee to knee. We used to do coding. Then we've got probing questions, show me boards, and children always edit and enhance their learning. So these are habits that we've got, that we've worked on, and then we would expect teachers to all use. And they all use that really consistent language. Okay. I'm going to show you a video, and this video is from teachers at Marine Academy Primary. And I basically sent an email on Wednesday or Thursday and wrote to teachers and just said, I'm going to talk about incremental coaching. Can you literally send me a video telling me what you like, what you don't like about incremental coaching, or why you think it works? And this is what some of my guys had to say about it.
Hello everyone, my name is Callum and I'm a Year 3 teacher at Marine Academy Primary in Plymouth. Incremental coaching has had a huge impact on my development as a teacher, especially being an ECT. The drop-in sessions that occur are always encouraging, and the conversations that we have afterwards provide a really important opportunity to reflect on our pedagogy. At this school, we really aim to achieve a consistency throughout the year groups of teaching, trying to ensure that all of our teaching approaches are the same, and incremental coaching is a really important tool in order for that to be achieved.
Incremental coaching has been great at building teachers' confidence within the classroom. In addition, I feel that it's created a real level playing field within the school. So teachers that are new to their career and teachers that have got many years of experience behind them are all treated the same way and through the same process. And it's that notion that everyone understands that there's always things to learn, there's always things to improve on.
My name is Annette and I'm a PE leader at Meredith Primary. I have found the incremental coaching sessions really beneficial. I teach PE to the whole school as part of my role, and it's been really lovely to work in a supportive situation with coaches across subjects that I wouldn't necessarily teach. So I've been able to work with coaches in science lessons and maths lessons, which has really helped me not become de-skilled in those situations. It also means that actually I'm being the best that I can be for my children that I'm teaching and the children in our school. We link in with our teacher CPD sessions, so some of the coaching points that I've worked with my coach on, we've also been able to then explore them further in our teacher CPD sessions.
Speaking from my own personal view as a coach, I coach the specialist of PE and the specialist in Spanish languages, and I would say that these two subjects are my weakest. So it's that idea of being a coach is not about scrutinising what the teacher's capabilities are, but actually in a positive way, being those extra pair of eyes at the back of the classroom just to pick out any targets and any key things that we can improve or we can add into a teacher's routine just to enhance the children's learning, because that's what we're doing, we're putting the children first.
So the impact incremental coaching has had on me as a teacher. I really love the precise and immediate feedback. Also that we're very strict with times, so that shows that the teacher's time is being valued. There's an expectation that I'm capable of improving on the little bit we're focusing on before moving on, which is very empowering. And also, what I think is very important to me is the concept that coaching feedback, it's like a gift, it's very, very positive. And ultimately, a good action step is one that makes me develop more quickly and therefore will help the children learn more tomorrow.
There you go. So I quite liked how unscripted that was, but you can hear the consistent messages and hopefully it kind of follows in with some of the things that I've said today. And if you've read the book, thanks to the feedback, that was really helpful, and where Emma says feedback's a gift, it truly, truly is. But it's also remembering this, that actually what you permit, you promote, what you allow, you encourage, what you condone, you own. And you do just have to own it. And that is just about absolutely everything to do within schools. And I have this thing sometimes where I might walk down a corridor and I'm really busy and I'm just trying to pass on a message, and there's a mess in the corner of the corridor, and I walk past it and I think, if I walk past it, I've now permitted everyone else in this school to walk past it too. So I do have to stop, I have to check myself, I have to go back and I tidy up, because I'm not going to permit and promote that. So, in terms of incremental coaching, you develop a whole school approach to habit forming deliberate practice. The one thing that we learn is that you must get that written down, you must formalise it, and you've got to have that charter to make it successful. Staff meetings, you can teach the consistency to enable the development of your habits. Coaching should take place fortnightly. It should never be any longer than that. It can be more than that. So Callum, the first person that spoke on the video, he's an ECT, he actually asked for it weekly. Now, I'm not going to say no to that. If he wants more of it, he can have more of it, because it's going to make a true, true difference. And it should never be overwhelming for teachers. Deliberate the practice then is about being proactive. It's all about practice doesn't make perfect, but it does make permanent. So you have to have that deliberate practice. Don't let coaches get away without doing that deliberate practice with their teachers. Because the thing is, actually, you don't get better at running marathons by running lots of marathons. You need to break it down into component parts, getting those real clear action steps. And finally, we know that great teaching is the most important lever schools have to improve outcomes to their pupils, but you need to do fewer things in greater depth. And that's me. Thank you very much.